This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today, we spend the hour with Mansoor Adayfi. At the age of 18, he left his home in Yemen to do research in Afghanistan. Shortly before he was scheduled to return home, he was kidnapped by Afghan warlords and sold to the CIA after the September 11th attacks. He was jailed and tortured in Afghanistan, then transported to the U.S. military prison at Guantánamo in 2002, where he was held without charge for 14 years, many of those years in solitary confinement. Mansoor became known as Detainee 441. In 2016, he was released against his will to Serbia, which he compares to Guantánamo 2.0. By the time Mansoor was released, he'd spent more than half his life in prison. Mansoor Adayfi has just published a memoir titled Don't Forget Us Here, Lost and Found at Guantánamo. I spoke to him Friday from his home in Belgrade. I began by asking him to talk about how he ended up at Guantánamo.
Okay, let's fly back like 38 years, which actually like when people ask me how old are you, I said like 24 because I didn't count Guantánamo, like tried to cheat. Anyway, I born in a tiny village in Yemen, Raima. Born like with 11 brothers and sisters, large family, very conservative family. Until I studied my primary school and secondary school in the village. We had no high school, so I had to go and live with my aunt in the capital, Sana'a, which is like New World. When I finished with my high school, I was assigned to do some, as the research in Afghanistan. I was like a research assistant in Afghanistan. This is how my journey started there. In Afghanistan, I spent a couple of months researching and doing some of the research required to be done. One day after 9/11, I was kidnapped by the warlord. They were actually interested in the car. They weren't interested in us. Then when American came, the American airplane, they were throwing a lot of flyers offering a large bounty of money. Could it change Afghani's life? So Afghanis found out that the more you give them high-ranked people, the more you get paid. The price ranged between $5,000 until like $200,000, $500,000. First of all, we were taken as hold for ransom. Then I was sold to the CIA as Al-Qaeda general, middle-aged Egyptian, 9/11 insider. I was taken to the black site where I was like tortured for like over 2 months. Then from the black site to Kandahar detention was one of the funny things. When I arrived at Kandahar detention, I was thrown naked there. It's like it's a long journey. Second day of my arrival, guards came to move me to a tent. After the interrogation, I was asked to sign a paper that the Americans have a right to shoot me and kill me if I try to escape. I said, no, I'm not going to sign. Of course, I will try to escape. I shouldn't be in the first place. So I was beating. I refused to sign. They put my hand on the paper. They signed it themselves. I said, no, that doesn't count. I have to sign with my, willingly.
And when you talked about a bounty being paid to the warlords who handed you over to the U.S. CIA, and then you were tortured at a black site. Do you know where that black site was? And when you say tortured, what actually happened to you in that 2-month period? If I hate to bring you back there, but what actually happened?
I don't know where. Until that day, I don't know where the black site is, where that place. But I was kept before that at one of the warlord home. I was treated like a guest, teaching his kids classes, math, Quran, and so on. And after that, when American came, they stripped naked. They put me in the bag, hooded, and they shipped me to somewhere. I don't know. Until that day, so. And the black site, it was one of the worst experience in my life. Sometimes I'm afraid to get back there, not because fear, it's just, to relive that trauma, because there was no limit to whatever they can do to us, 24 hours.
And these were U.S. soldiers?
Yes, U.S. soldiers and with also Afghanis, where people actually lost their life there because they were looking for where Osama bin Laden, where is Mullah Muhammad, where the new attacks, the sleeper cells, and they have a long list and photos and all kind of things. So yes, I mean, those black sites, I believe no one knows how many people ended there and how many people actually died there. But there was no limitation to whatever they can do to you. I mean, we spent hang on the ceiling all the time, upside down. Even we blindfolded, naked. The food, drink, they just pour rice and water in our mouth. Sometimes we also do our things while standing, and there is no rest. 24 hours is a programming, like sleep deprivation. We have only sleep. They give you 30 minutes, like then 6 hours, then 20 minutes if you can sleep. Loud music, beating, waterboarding. They used to put us in kind of like a barrel and roll it in the ice and shoe. And the first time I did, I thought that I died because they rolled it and they used to they shot with the gun. I was looking with the holes, but I was still alive. So yes, I mean.
And so you were taken from there to Kandahar, and then you were held where in Kandahar before being brought to Guantánamo?
I think in Kandahar, we were at the airport. They have a detention. They built a detention prison in Kandahar. It was tent surrounded with like high walls of barbed wires. We could see the airplanes taken off and every time. So when we used to see the small airplanes, we knew they bring new group of people. But we call the big one, we call the Beast, the Air Force, really big one. So that when it comes, we all like panic because we knew some people was going to leave and they're going to disappear. So even that trauma, just waiting for your name our name to be called. They took us and they call a process station, or they just dragged me to that place, hang on the pool, stripped naked, shaved, and there were all kind of humiliation. It's just too much to talk about it. So when we were packed on orange jumpsuit, everything was orange. Shoes, socks, uniform, shirt, T-shirt, pants. Everything was orange, and they have also goggles, air muffs. My mouth was duct taped, my eyes too. Also, then hood, and they put one more thing about special because as big fish, they put a sign around my neck, which said "beat me." So every 10 minutes, I get beaten all the way for the next over 40 hours until we arrived at Guantánamo.
And what did they say you did? What were the charges against you?
At the black site, I was accused to be an Egyptian. They asked me, I was in Nairobi and was recruiting, money laundering. I was Al-Qaeda camp, head of the camp, trainer, commander, all kind of accusation. I tried to deny them, but I admit to everything, But the problem was with the details. I couldn't give them the details. By the end of 2.5 months, when they found out I wasn't that person, they just threw me in Kandahar detention. And from Kandahar, the same file were sent with me, where the interrogation started again about the same person. And in Guantánamo, over and over and over again.
Now, I want to just be very clear. You were 18 years old.
Yeah, I was 18 years old when I was kidnapped. I turned 19 on the black site.
Former Guantánamo prisoner Mansoor Adayfi. We'll be back with him in 30 seconds.
في رضاك كل آلام السجون كل ما فيها يهون كل آلام السجون كل ما فيها يهون في رضاك في رضاك بغية.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue our conversation with Mansoor Adayfi, he was imprisoned by the United States at Guantánamo for 14 years. He's author of the new memoir, Don't Forget Us Here, Lost and Found at Guantánamo.
What most people don't know about the purpose of Guantánamo. Let me talk just a little. Guantánamo, as you know, it was outside of the law. What they call it, the island outside of the law. So the purpose of Guantánamo wasn't about making American safe or about safety or security. It was, it wasn't that purpose. So we were called detainees, and as you know, international law doesn't apply. Geneva Convention doesn't apply. American law doesn't apply. Cuban law doesn't apply. Nothing applies at that place. It's just a dark hole, a black site within the military base. So when General Miller arrived in 2000, by the end of 2002, he's the first one who wrote the camp SOP, Standard Operation Procedure, and he was the first one who started developing what they call enhanced interrogation technique, enhanced torture technique. So we were kept in solitary confinement, experimented on, punished, everything utilized as experiment. Our religion, our daily life, food, clothes, medicine, talk, air, everything was used in those experiments. Also, there was a psychologist who supervised those experiments. There was around 800 detainees from 50 nationalities, 20 languages spoken. But, Amy, the youngest detainee was only 3 months old. They brought him with his father. He was kept in the hospital. The oldest detainee was 105 years old. That man was my neighbor, and that what hurt me most at Guantánamo, seeing that man at that age treated like the same I was treated. I couldn't take it. I had to fight every day with the guard to stop treating that way. So, yes, General Miller was his job. There is a research called Guantanamo's America's Battle Lab. Talk about how Guantánamo was turned into experimenting lab on detainees. So, even not just us. There was a chaplain, I think you know about James Yee. I met him at Guantánamo.
James Yee was the chaplain at Guantánamo who would come out and talk about what happened there.
No, before what happened to James Yee at Guantánamo shocked and surprised us all. I remember the first time I talked to James Yee, I was taken to the interrogation room, stripped naked, and they put me in a we call it satanic room, where they have like stars, signs, candles, and crazy guy come in like white crazy clothes, reciting something. So they also used to throw the Holy Quran on the ground, and they tried to pressure us to they were experimenting basically. When I met James Yee, I told him, look, that what happened with us that way. James Yee he was protesting against the torture at Guantánamo. General Miller, the one who was actually developing enhanced interrogation technique, enhanced torture technique, so that James Yee as a chaplain is going to be a problem. So he was accused as sympathized with terrorists. He was arrested, detained, and interrogated. This is American Army captain, a graduate of West Point University, came to serve at Guantánamo to serve his own country. Was because a Muslim background, he was accused of terrorism and was detained and prison. This American guy. Imagine what would happen to us at that place. So when they took James Yee, we protested. We asked to bring him back because the lawyers told us what happened for him after like 1 year. We wrote letter to the camp administration, to the White House, to the Security Council, to the United Nations, to everyone basically.
When you talked about General Miller, just for people who might not remember, oversaw the enhanced interrogation techniques. That was the euphemism for torture at Guantánamo, then brought from there to Iraq to gitmoize Abu Ghraib there, to bring those same torture techniques there. And when the Taguba report came out, it cited Miller for the massive level of abuse at Abu Ghraib. So in that period, I mean, Mansoor Adayfi, you write so powerfully about what sustained you, about the relationships you had, not only with other prisoners, or as you say, detainees, but with guards as well. Can you talk about that?
You know, Amy, let me go a little, I'd like to make a point here. First of all, we as prisoners or detainees, we were not just the victims of Guantánamo. There are also guards and camp staff were also victims of Guantánamo itself. You know, that worst situation or condition brought us together and proved that we all human and we share the same humanity first. Also, Amy, a simple question. What makes a human as a human? Make Amy as a, make Mansoor as Mansoor, makes the guys in the, as individual and person, you know? What makes you as a human and uniquely is your name, your language, your faith, your morals, your ethics, your memories, your relationship, your knowledge, your experience, basically your family. That's what makes a person as a person. At Guantánamo, when we arrived there, imagine the system was designed to strip us of who we are, you know? Even our names was taken or becoming numbers. You are not allowed to practice religion. You are not allowed to talk. You are not allowed to have a relationship. So, to the extent we thought, if they were able to control our thought, they would have done it. So, when you arrive at Guantánamo, one of the things people still don't know about Guantánamo, we had no shared life before Guantánamo. Everything was different, was new, and unknown, and a scary unknown. You know, so we started developing some kind of relationship with each other at Guantánamo, between among us like prisoners or brothers, and with the guards too. Because when guards came to work at Guantánamo, they became part of our life, part of our memories. That will never go away. The same thing. We become part of their life, become memories. Before the guards arrived at Guantánamo, they were told. Some of them were taken to the 9/11 site, ground zero, and they were told the one who had done this is in Guantánamo. Imagine when they arrived at Guantánamo, they came with a lot of hate and grudge and revenge. But when they live with us and watch us every day, eat, drink, sleep, get beaten, get sick, screaming, yelling, interrogated, torture, you know, also they are humans. You know, the camp administration, they cannot lie them forever. So the guards also, when they lived with us, they found out they're not the men we were told they're about. Some of them, you know, were apologizing to us. Some of them, we formed strong friendship with them. Some of them convert to Islam. The military rules is cruel, and they treat those guards as a product, not as humans. You know, even those guards, when some of them went to tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, when they come back, we saw how they changed. When I grew up, I became my 30s. When they used to bring younger guards, I looked at them as like younger brothers and sisters, and always tell them like, please get out of the military because it's going to devastate you. I have seen many people change.
I mean, this is such an important point you're making. You were there when you were 19, and you were still there in your 30s. And then the young people who are there, who are the guards, are the age you were when you first got there.
Yeah, I mean, because when I grew up at that place, when I saw how the guards came back, many of them were mentally devastated. You know, when you see a broken soul, it is painful than anything. You know, even the pain that touched your soul, it is worse than it is the most severe pain. I have experienced many pain, beating, torture, even you name it. But the worst thing I experienced, that touched my soul.
I wanted to ask you about the hunger strikes. You participated in these for years, and you were force-fed.
You know, I mean, we were in a place, we tried to survive. As I told you, we had only each other. And there is no way, we we tried to stop the torture, the abuses, the mistreatment. We tried to find why we were held there till when it was going to happen to us. So when the first time when I come to X-ray, when they were harsh, stopping us from praying together. One day they came, one of the brothers were praying, they opened his door, they beat him, and they threw the holy book into the floor. So we, this is the first protest together. So we discussed among ourselves, what should we do? Okay. The first time I heard about the hunger strike, I never heard about it before. We went on hunger strike. I spent 9 days. It was a mean try to survive. We were hurting ourselves. I always tell the people, our bodies was the battlefield because Americans torture us, abuse us, and beat us. And in our bodies, also we were torturing our bodies by hunger strike, by trying to resist. And I wrote about it, the hunger strike. It was a slow journey toward death. That's hunger strike. They also become very experienced how to break the hunger strike. We spent almost every year we had to go through many hunger strikes over and over again. We force fed in 2005, 7, 2010, 13. Some of the brothers spent 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. There are brothers still until now on force feeding until that day.
And what was that force feeding? Can you describe it? We were just learning about what was happening at Guantánamo at the time, the tubes that were used, how big they were, that this was used as a form of torture as well, what it meant when they were forced to stop force feeding you?
As I told you, they were also doctors. They were experimenting on us. They used to bring. They tried to bring the hunger strike. I was one of the very first 5 detainees who was on the brink of death in 2005 before they approved the force feeding. I remember when the commander came, he said, "Now the Congress, approved the force feeding." When they took us, they bring tubes. They said through our nose. Our nose is like a drill. Bleeding
through your nose.
So through our noses to our stomach. At that time we were on bed. Then the situation got worse. They brought something called feeding a chair, force feeding a chair, which they tie our heads, 8 points, our shoulders, our wrist, our waist, our legs, and the force feeding a chair. Then. They brought also really large, they call it 9 French tube, really large, and they put it through our nose. We were screaming, shouting that, eat. No, wait, eat. In 2005, they forced all of us to stop the hunger strike. What they did, they used to feed us, regularly they should for us twice a day. But when they wanted to bring the hunger strike, they used to feed us 5 times a day. Nobody can last. They used to bring piles of ensure and just pour in our stomach, one after another. We throw up, it doesn't matter. Eat. 8 hours to 12 hours in the force feeding chair.
This is they used to bring the ensure through your nose.
Yes. They used to pour the ensure, one can after we was to throw up. If you throw up, you get more. They also used to bring some laxative in the ensure. We on ourselves on the feeding chair, and we were taken to a certain confinement, really cold AC. They said, I remember that time there's a general who came. He said, I was sent by the White House just to break your hunger strike. The first time he met me, he said he took my file. Sir, 441. He's so mean, you can say in his eyes, in words. He said, I'm here today to tell you, sir, eat, because tomorrow there will be no talking. I tried to explain to him that why you are in a hunger strike. He said, I don't give about anything. Eat. Tomorrow there will be no talking. I did last for 2 days. I stopped. I couldn't take it. It was too much. In 2007, again, I went on hunger strike. Then I spent from 2007 to 2010 on force feeding until things changed in the camp. And even Amy, our hunger strike was viewed by the camp administration as jihad. They said we are Al-Qaeda cell and launching jihad against the United States. The way how they understood our protest and hunger strike. And we told them, this is our demand. Stop the torture, stop the interrogation, improve the living condition, and we need to figure out what's going to happen to us. So what they did, they used to also hide us when the ICRC came. I remember one day I was in force feeding. The ICRC, his name Hatem, Sudani guy. He walked in the block and was like, in the first feeding, I would call him Hatem. He looked at me and he covered his eyes. I said, what's wrong with you? He said, we are not allowed to see you in that way. Even the ICRC at Guantánamo, we asked them to leave many years. We boycott them. We give them official letters. We signed many letters asking them to leave Guantánamo, because being at Guantánamo as ICRC, it just gave legitimacy to whatever American do here.
We're talking to Mansoor Adayfi. He was detainee 441 at Guantánamo, imprisoned without charge for 14 years, and has written a memoir about his life, Don't Forget Us Here, Lost and Found at Guantánamo. So I then want to ask you about what happened in 2016, why after 14 years without charge, at 19 years old, now in your 30s, you were released, and how you ended up, a Yemeni man, in Serbia.
I refused to come to Serbia. I was forced. They told me, you have no choice, either leave or rot in here. Then the ICRC, when I protest, I went on hunger strike, protesting going to Serbia. The ICRC came here to Mansour. They issued a new, Obama administration issued a new rules. If any detainee accepted by any country, he will be forced to leave regardless. So basically, I had no choice. They bought me with money, and they give the Serbian government money to take me again. So this is the game. We have no say.
And so you end up in Serbia. You end up in Belgrade. I was just listening to an interview that Frontline did with you. And when PBS partnered with NPR to do this documentary series, you did an interview with them, and ultimately you were beaten for that interview. Can you explain what happened to you, this not long after you got to Serbia?
When they came to interview me, I was on hunger strike on my 25 days. I spent 48 days on hunger strike protesting my condition, because the agreement between the United States government and the receiving countries, it was a resettlement agreement. But when we arrived at the hosting countries, they said, no, we had an agreement. We had a good contract to keep you for 2 years. You live in our countries under restrictions, nothing. You have no education, no courses, no. They made us promises, especially in my case. I was recommendation to finish my college education. So I talked to my lawyer. I said, I cannot live here. I cannot stay here. I want to leave. So I went on hunger strike when I was, even one of the universities, I was accepted. When they found out I came from Guantánamo, I was expelled. This is one of the things that hurt me most after Guantánamo. So I went on hunger strike. When the Frontline came here, the first they went to the government, they said they were fine and they were doing well. When they came to see me, I was in hunger strike. They were surprised. The first time we had an interview, then the second day, some people came to my apartment, took me down. They would send me a message: "Stop lying! You're lying! You're a liar! You're a liar!" and so on. And I didn't want to cause any problem, because I didn't want to expect. Because as you know, the Serbian, they have their history with Bosnia in the 1990s. Scary place. So then I disappear. Then I contacted my lawyer. I contacted the Frontline. We continue again. And again, after the interviews was aired, the Serbian newspaper really presented me in the worst way. Newspaper, TV. I was arrested, interrogated, threatened to be entrapped. I wrote a lot about it, and you read it here. I don't want to talk much detail because they're going to kick my ass again. But what I have learned at Guantánamo, I will never keep silence, because keeping silence only gives the oppressor a mean to oppress you more. So I will never keep silence. Whatever they do, I will keep, because I have done nothing wrong. Even if I have done something wrong, there is justice system. You cannot just beat people, arrest them, or interrogate them because you have a power. So So basically, yes, I mean, then in 2018, they came to me. They said, now that 2 years finished, you have to choose to go to Saudi jail or to go to the refugee camp. And that guy, his name is Nicola, told me, American, you. The interview costs you a lot, literally word by word. And my lawyer was there. Listen to him. You're like, what? So yes, what I talk about our life after Guantanamo, we still live in Guantanamo 2.0. You know, just let you know, Amy, I studied in another college. I will be graduating the 29th of September. And my thesis is about rehabilitation and reintegration of former Guantanamo detainees into social life and the labor market. I have been doing a lot of research for the last 5 years. I have interviewed around 150 brothers released from Guantanamo.
You can't leave Serbia, Mansoor.
Do you remember when I told you the worst pain that touched your soul? You know, I wanted to get married. I found really a woman that I thought she is going to be my wife. The only thing was like the piece of paper and a travel document where I can get married. So I couldn't travel, so I couldn't marry and finish. Not just me. I think I'm lucky. There are one of the brothers, Lutfi, he died last year. He had heart diseases. He was relocated from Kazakhstan to Mauritania, where they didn't have good health system. He needed to go to somewhere where he be treated because he needed emergency surgery. And his doctor told him you have at least 6 months. So he needed $30,000 cash organized, raised fund for him. And they said his surgery will be covered. He needed just a travel document, either travel to Tunisia or their country, just to have the surgery and get back. He lost his life. You know, it's one of the saddest moments. Like when I was talking to him, Martin Case, we talked to the ICRC, we talked to human rights organization, to government. Nobody cares. Simply nobody cares.
Former Guantanamo prisoner Mansoor Adayfi, jailed at Guantanamo for 14 years, never charged. We'll be back with him in 30 seconds.
Rulers of the nations as you fuss and fight,